Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a battlefield, but there are no swords, no soldiers, no banners waving in the wind. Just fog, silence, and a man watching you from the shadows. His name is Mr. Nothingness. Half of his face is painted black, the other bone white. His lips, smeared with dried blood red, curve into a smile that knows too much. He doesn't speak, not yet. He just stares. And in that stare, you feel it. You've been here before. This war is not fought with weapons. It's silent, invisible, and yet, you've been fighting your entire life without knowing it. Every job you applied for, every social circle you tried to enter, every dream that slipped through your fingers, you thought it was just bad luck, unfair timing, or not being good enough. But Mr. Mimas tilts his head, almost amused. Because what if the truth is darker? What if the game was never designed for people like you to win? You were taught to be kind, humble, patient, do the right thing, even when no one is watching. But Mr. Mimas only laughs, softly, silently, watching as those very values change you to mediocrity. Because who climbs the highest? Who commands attention? Who bends the world to their will? It's not the kind. It's not the humble. It's the bold, the cunning, the unapologetically ruthless. There's a reason for this, and it's not chaos. It's not accident. It's a system, a hidden structure, woven deep into the psychology of human beings. A game where the rules aren't written on paper, but etched into your biology, your institutions, your very sense of self. Now pause. Think about the people you admire. Not the ones you want to admire, the ones you do. The ones who intimidate you, who seem untouchable. What is it about them that sets them apart? Confidence? Charisma? Power? Or is it something darker, a subtle refusal to be bound by the same rules you live by? Mr. Mimas walks slowly along the edge of the fog. He doesn't speak, but everything about him whispers an ancient truth. Morality may not be a compass, but a cage. And here lies the paradox. Everything you've been taught about how to live, how to succeed, how to be a good person, what if it was designed to keep you small? Ask yourself, why do the most honest people feel the heaviest guilt? Why do the most generous suffer the deepest betrayal? Why do the quiet thinkers get buried, while the loudest liars thrive? Is this the failure of the world? Or is it the design? What if the world rewards exactly the opposite of what you've been taught to value? This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's not a doom spiral of blame. This is a call to see, to look beyond the surface. Because once you begin to understand how the game is truly played, once you see the hidden architecture beneath society, you can begin to choose. Not blindly follow, not blindly rebel, but truly choose who you become. There are ancient truths buried beneath the ruins of empires. Patterns that explain not just history, but your daily struggles. Ideas once explored by Nietzsche, Jung, and even mystics who believed reality itself was a mirror not of justice, but of will. And so Mr. Mimas stands in that mirror, half of him darkness, half of him light. He is not your enemy. He is not your savior. He is what's left when the masks fall away. You'll begin to see the world not as it should be, but as it is. But be warned, once seen, these truths cannot be unseen. And that's why so few ever seek them. Because to understand why the worst people succeed, you must first be willing to understand something far more terrifying. Why the good so often fail. We are going to rip apart the illusions, the psychological ones, the philosophical ones, the ones that have shaped your entire view of life and yourself. By the end of this journey, you will see clearly not only how power operates, but how it infects every choice you've ever made. You'll understand why the game is rigged, who benefits from that rigging, and how you can choose to either be its victim or its master. But first, let's go deeper, to the place where these ideas are born, where morality, fear, and survival weave into the fabric of your subconscious, where the silent forces controlling your life whisper their commands. And in that place, Mr. Nothingness is waiting. Stay with me until the end, because once we begin to unpack this, you will never look at power, success, or even your own desires the same way again. If you're ready to challenge everything you thought you knew, like this video, subscribe, and stay sharp. What you're about to discover is not for the faint of heart. Power. It intoxicates, seduces, and blinds. But what if the real reason the worst people succeed isn't power itself, but the way you've been conditioned to fear it? Somewhere in the shadows, Mr. Nothingness watches. He doesn't speak. He doesn't move. He simply sits, with his crumpled black suit, his face split in shadow and light, and his dried, blood-red smile frozen in quiet mockery. He's seen this story unfold too many times. You were never taught to claim power. You were taught to avoid it. From the moment you were born, your mind was not a blank slate. It was a sponge. And what did it soak in? Rules, beliefs, stories wrapped in morality, not to liberate you, but to domesticate you. Mr. Mimas leans forward now, tapping the tips of his fingers together. Because this is the moment you must understand. You weren't taught to see, you were taught to obey. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, an inherited system of belief and expectation that binds entire civilizations. Within it live archetypes, the noble hero, the evil tyrant, the silent martyr. These aren't just stories, they are scripts. And you, like most, were cast without your consent. Your fear of being selfish, your guilt for wanting more, your shame when you assert yourself. None of it is truly yours. It was planted, watered, fertilized, and pruned by the hands of a society that fears the unbound mind. Now imagine Mr. Mimas in the audience of this grand play we call life. The crowd watches the actors recite their lines. Lines about virtue, modesty, patience. But Mimas doesn't clap. He tilts his head. He smirks. Because he knows, those who rise do not perform. They rewrite. The root of the problem isn't external. It's psychological. Most people live under what Viktor Frankl called the will to meaning, a deep drive to make sense of life, to be good. But in a world wired for competition, that will can become a trap. Doubt grows where clarity is feared. And in that doubt, the cunning find their opening. Enter Nietzsche. He didn't destroy morality. He exposed it. In one of his most explosive revelations, Nietzsche split morality into two. Slave morality, rooted in fear, guilt, and survival. It worships humility, obedience, and passive endurance. Master morality, rooted in power, creation, and will. It honors strength, pride, ambition, and the unapologetic shaping of the world. Mr. Mimas now rises from his seat. He walks through the rows of invisible faces, each one wearing a mask. He stops. He leans down and whispers, not with his mouth, but with his gaze. Which morality rules you? Here's the unsettling truth. Slave morality dominates modern society. It teaches you to suffer in silence, to wait your turn, to hope the world notices your goodness. And while you hesitate, the ruthless do not. But this isn't about good versus evil. It's about power versus illusion. Think of society as a stage. Most people are actors reciting lines handed down by frightened generations. But a few, those who rise, step off the stage. They break the script. They improvise. They become the playwright. And what fuels this divide? Fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being who you were trained to be. That fear is the leash. And Mr. Mimas? He's the one who cut his. As Schopenhauer said, a man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. The tragedy? Most don't even realize their wills were chosen for them. This is the core of the problem. You've been trained to chase approval instead of truth, to be liked instead of feared, to be accepted instead of free. But power doesn't wait to be chosen. Power chooses itself. Mr. Mimas now stands in front of the broken stage, hands gently clasped, gaze locked on you. He doesn't ask you to follow. He dares you to step forward. Because behind every soul who settles for less is a system designed to keep them predictable. Why do people stay in dead jobs? Why do they remain in hollow relationships? Why do they walk paths that drain their soul? Because the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as intended. The compliant become fuel. The restless become outcasts. The dangerous, those who see, they become rulers or ghosts. Jean-Paul Sartre called it bad faith, lying to yourself to avoid the terrifying responsibility of freedom. Mr. Mimas knows. He sees it. He's seen it in every bent back, every rehearsed smile, every dream buried beneath duty. Power does not care about your comfort. It does not care about fairness. It only answers to one thing: force, not violence, but presence, decisiveness, the clarity of a mind unchained. And so, the worst rise, not because they are monsters, but because they are unbound. They do not wait for permission. They do not beg to be seen. They take what others were taught not to touch. But this isn't the end of the story, because now you see the bars. And once you see them, you can pick the lock. Mr. Mimas steps aside. The fog parts just enough for you to glimpse the fork in the road. One leads back to comfort, masks, and quiet obedience. The other? To fire, to freedom, to the birth of something no one can control. But before you break free, you must face what that cage has done. To your family, to your culture, to everything you've called normal. And so, Mr. Mimas waits. You walk through the world believing you're making choices. What to study, who to date, where to live. But what if none of it was ever yours to begin with? Somewhere, not far behind you, Mr. Mimas watches in stillness, seated like a judge on no throne, hands pressed fingertip to fingertip, head tilted ever so slightly. You don't see him, but he sees you. What if your entire identity was shaped not by who you are, but by a silent, invisible architecture, a system designed not to crush you, but to tame you, to keep you predictable, compliant, controlled? This is the true cost of the hidden problem. And Mr. Mimas knows the price. He's paid it. He's watched others pay it. He has worn the masks. And now he wears none. When morality is weaponized, fear becomes policy. When ambition is demonized, greatness dies in silence. And when truth is traded for obedience, you don't get a society of peace. You get a society of ghosts. Ghosts who smile politely, who clock in and clock out, who wake up every day dying a little more inside, wondering why nothing feels real anymore. You've seen them. In classrooms where curiosity is punished. In offices where compliance is rewarded and originality is buried beneath meetings. In families where obedience is mistaken for love and rebellion for betrayal. You've seen it in yourself. That quiet ache. That whisper that says, I was meant for more. But no matter how hard you try, it always feels just out of reach. This is not your weakness. It's your conditioning. And Mr. Mimas, he's the tear in that conditioning. Let's talk about how it works. Neurologically, your brain is designed to avoid pain, especially the pain of rejection. You were trained from the earliest age to belong. And when the world hands you a moral code, your brain accepts it, not because it's true, but because not following it feels like death. So the loop begins. You feel a bold desire. Your brain whispers, what will they think? You hesitate. You suppress. You comply. Mr. Mimas smiles not with joy, but with recognition. Because the system doesn't punish you. It rewards you. Every time you choose safety over truth, it gives you a hit of dopamine for being a good person. But the reward isn't growth. It's acceptance. And acceptance is the drug. And what does this create? A society of cognitive dissonance, where people talk about courage but act in fear, where strength is admired in fantasy but crucified in reality. And into this void walks the ruthless, not because they're more intelligent, but because they're unafraid. They're not seeking to be liked. They don't need to be understood. They have no interest in being chosen because they've already chosen themselves. Mr. Mimas walks through that void with no fear of the silence, no need for applause. He is not above you. He is what's left when you stop hiding. Because the worst people succeed not because the world is broken, but because it punishes authenticity and rewards performance. And the ruthless refuse to play a losing game. Now here's where it deepens. The cost of this trap is not just personal. It's civilizational. Entire generations lose themselves in the illusion of moral superiority, while the true machinery of power spins untouched, unchallenged. People chant about justice while handing their autonomy to systems they don't even understand. They kneel before ideals they no longer believe in, just to avoid being exiled by the mob. Mr. Mimas walks among them. No mask, no chant, no fear, just silence, piercing, shattering silence. This is the morality trap, where the appearance of goodness is more valuable than truth, where actual change is sacrificed for comfort and applause. It is not a coincidence that the most horrific crimes in history were committed by those who believed they were doing the right thing. Because morality, stripped of self-awareness, becomes a weapon far more dangerous than greed. And then comes the final betrayal. You betray yourself. You say yes when you want to scream no. You shrink to avoid judgment. You give up your gifts so others can stay comfortable. And one morning, you wake up, look in the mirror, and ask, who did I become? Mr. Mimas is there, watching, not judging, only waiting for you to ask the question that matters. What if none of this was me? Because this isn't failure. It's the system working perfectly. But somewhere, in the silence between thoughts, there's a flicker, a voice, a whisper that says, no more. You were not born to serve a machine. You were born to create worlds. And Mr. Mimas, he nods, because he has no interest in your rebellion. He's waiting for your sovereignty, not the revolt against the system, but the revolt against that small voice inside you that still begs to be accepted, that still waits to be chosen. Because here's the final truth in this section. You don't need to be chosen. You only need to remember who you are when no one's watching. And as Mr. Mimas walks away, his voice echoes not from his lips, but from within you. You were never the mask. You were always the one behind it. You don't need permission to awaken. You don't need approval to reclaim your will. Because here's the first truth of rebellion. No one is coming to save you, but no one can stop you either. And somewhere in the dark, seated just beyond the noise of your life, Mr. Mimas leans forward. His eyes lock onto you. His fingers steeple at the lips. His head tilts slowly. He says nothing, but you can feel it. He's been waiting for you to arrive at this threshold. Rebellion is not chaos. It's not rage. It's not fire. It's a stillness, an internal rupture, a quiet war where your mind stops asking, is this allowed? And starts asking, is this real? Mr. Mimas rises, his crumpled suit hanging loosely on his frame. He begins to walk, but not forward, inward. And as you follow, you begin the only rebellion that matters. Step 1. Kill the false self. The false self is the mask you were given. The polite version. The safe version. The one who nods when it wants to scream. The one who smiles when it wants to break. The one who survives, but never lives. Mr. Mimas holds out a mask. It looks familiar, because it's yours. Carl Jung called it the persona, a social mask built for the crowd. But beneath it, in the shadows of your psyche, waits the self, raw, untamed, and whole. Mr. Mimas drops the mask. It shatters without sound. You will reclaim your power the moment you stop apologizing for the parts of you the world told you to hide. Your rage, your lust, your ambition, they are not sins. They are fuel. Step 2. Embrace the sacred no. Rebellion isn't only about what you do. It's about what you refuse. Every false yes you offer is a betrayal of your sovereignty. Every agreement made out of fear draws the bars tighter around your spirit. Mr. Mimas stands before a line drawn in chalk on the ground. He points at it, then looks at you, not to cross it, to defend it. The sacred no is quiet, but it is final. It says, I will not be less than I am to make you comfortable. Step 3. Study the sacred outliers. Mr. Mimas gestures toward a burning tapestry of history, figures walking against the grain. Diogenes, living in a barrel, mocking emperors with nothing but truth. Hypatia, teaching forbidden truths while mobs threaten her life. Nietzsche, descending into madness not because he was lost, but because he saw too far. They weren't rebels for sport. They were rebels because they saw through the illusion. They didn't defy authority. They simply stopped needing it. Mr. Mimas stands among them, not as one of them, but as the shadow that followed them, the force that whispered when no one would listen. Step 4. Transmute pain into power. The system is built to break you, but it cannot control what you do with the fragments. Every scar on your soul can become scripture. Every betrayal, a blueprint. Mr. Mimas reveals his own chest. It's cracked, stitched, and marked with symbols that are not wounds, but lessons. This is the alchemy of rebellion. You don't need to heal to rise. You need to burn beautifully. Step 5. Become a creator, not a critic. It's easy to mock the world, to tear down, to scorn. But rebellion is not demolition, it's creation. You've been waiting. For timing, for signs, for permission. Mr. Mimas picks up a broken quill and places it in your hand. He does not speak. He simply nods. Because the time is now, and your hesitation feeds the system more than your silence ever did. Step 6. Burn the rulebook, build the code. You were taught to follow, taught to adapt, taught that freedom was the absence of rules. But freedom without self-mastery is just another cage. Nietzsche's Übermensch did not destroy morality. He forged his own. Mr. Mimas lights a small fire. One by one, old commandments drop into the flame. Be nice. Fit in. Stay small. They burn quietly. No drama. No spectacle. Then he hands you a blank page. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? What am I willing to suffer for? What am I no longer willing to betray? Because once you live your own code, the world loses its grip. And in the ashes of the old, something terrifying and beautiful stands tall. A human being who cannot be owned. Mr. Mimas watches you rise. He says nothing, because he knows. You no longer need him to speak. There comes a moment in every seeker's life when the illusions burn away, when the lies no longer work, when the masks melt under the silent, searing heat of awakening. And in that silence, heavy and eternal, you sense him, Mr. Mimas, standing at the edge of your perception, not as a judge, not as a guide, but as the last reflection of the self you are about to leave behind. No trumpet sound, no applause awaits, only stillness, only truth. And in that stillness, a realization emerges. You were never powerless, not as a child, not in your failures, not even in your silence. The system did not steal your power. It convinced you to surrender it. But now, the veil lifts. You see Mr. Mimas clearly now. His split-painted face, black on the left, white on the right. Dried blood-red lips. Short, unkempt mohawk. Crumpled, unbuttoned dark suit hanging from his frame like forgotten theater garb. His gaze carries no judgment, only an ancient certainty. A knowing, because all the rules that once bound you were myths. The idea that success belongs to the ruthless? A myth. That kindness is weakness? A myth. That the world is rigged beyond repair? A myth. They were never truths. They were agreements. And you can stop agreeing whenever you choose. Mr. Mimas smiles, not mockingly now, but quietly, approvingly. Because here it is, the ultimate realization. Power is not about domination. It's about alignment. Alignment between who you are, what you value, and how you move through existence. Most people live fractured, half-truths stitched to hollow ambitions. That's why they settle, why they betray themselves again and again. But the moment you align, truly, fully, you become untouchable. The ruthless may climb faster, but they climb crooked towers built on sand. The Übermensch, the sovereign being, does not climb. He creates ground. He stands where no one else dares to. Mr. Mimas steps aside. The ground before you is cracked but fertile, waiting. Let's be clear. This is not about becoming better in the eyes of the world. Not more famous, not more admired. It is about becoming sovereign. A being who no longer asks, "What should I do?" but declares, "This is who I am." It is the death of imitation, the rebirth of self. Imagine this. You wake up with a clarity so deep that the chaos of the world cannot touch it. You speak, and reality bends. Not because you command it, because your very presence carries the weight of alignment. You no longer need to justify yourself. You no longer beg to be understood. You are the storm and the stillness. You are power, not borrowed, not stolen, inherent. And there, in the corner of your awareness, stands Mr. Mimas, still, patient, eternal. He does not applaud. He does not bow. He simply watches, as the first true breath of sovereignty fills your lungs. This is what it means to transcend the game. You do not need to dominate. You do not need to abandon your heart. You need only to remember. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And once you remember, you must act. Not just think. Not just dream. Act. Because the final step isn't intellectual. It is existential. You must embody the realization. Live it. Walk it. Share it. Every choice becomes a declaration. I am no longer asleep. I will no longer play small. I will no longer apologize for existing fully. And from this place, something sacred happens. Your voice deepens. Your presence sharpens. Your very existence reshapes the reality around you. This is not magic. It is not luck. It is you, unchained. And this is what the ruthless fear most. Not exposure, not consequence, but people who no longer play their game. You want to know why the worst people succeed? It's because the best people were asleep. But now you're not. And so the final question is not, why do the worst rise? The final question is, what happens when the awakened begin to rise too? Because the world does not change when you fight the old. It changes when you become the new. Final thought, you are not here to follow rules. You are not here to wait for permission. You are not here to be small. You are here to awaken, to rebel, to build, to remember. Real power does not seek control. Real power creates reality. Mr. Mimas tilts his head one final time, his eyes glinting with a silent question. The world is ready for you. But are you ready for the world? If this shook something inside you, like, subscribe, share this with the others who are still sleeping. Because every revolution begins with a whisper. And now, the whisper has reached you.